Sorry, you caught me reading. Reading video. Have you heard about reading? It's pretty cool. It's also trendy and cute to do, but I've been trying to do more of it this year, and so I want to go into the books I've read so far for 2025. Some of them pretty epic, some of them maybe overhyped, maybe underhyped, I don't know, and some of them that I think are like hidden gems. So let's dive in. These are what I've read so far, but we're gonna go through them one at a time. Is that okay? I had set a goal at the beginning of the year here. Actually, there's a video, end of year, whatever, where I was trying to read like a book a month. I'm going a little faster than that, which is pretty sick. We love a low bar. It makes it easier to jump over. In this video, I want to go over the 6 books I've read so far this year. That book I was holding up in the beginning while I was being a troll is the book I'm currently reading, which is called Bunny, which I don't really know what it's about yet because I'm only a little bit through. So it's kind of Mean Girls energy so far. So let's go through them one at a time. First book, Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. Mistborn. Brandon Sanderson's super hype right now. He's a fantasy writer. He has like his own little universe with like 30 books or something in it, something crazy. A lot of people really like it. I like his stuff too. This was kind of my introduction to it, and it was pretty good. I'll say one thing is these mass market copies that I got from Amazon that was like a steal. Real shitty quality in terms of the physical book itself. Like there's pages falling out. If I grab this and like smear, you'll see that, like, you can't see, but I know that the like ink smear, see that shit? I just did that right now. Don't get the mass market discount ones, get the normal ones. I think it's one you'll probably want to keep, but very cool. What's it about? Mistborn is about there's kind of 2 main characters. There's this one girl, she's like a thief or whatever. It's kind of orphaned, and she's just kind of like doing what she can to survive. And then there's this other dude, her name's Vin, and there's this dude named Kelsier, who is kind of this thing called a Mistborn. And a Mistborn are people who can kind of control these types of magic. A type of magic called allomancy in this world, where it's kind of like they can control metal. It's really cool in terms of like how they break down the world and the types of magics they use and the universes and things like that. I thought it was really great. Thought it was a little bit of a slow burn because they do a lot of world building and stuff like that. And there are 2 more books in the series, and supposedly the 3rd one is really epic. So they're kind of thick books, so I kind of put it on pause to get back into it later, but definitely recommend. I understand the hype. I think it would make a really cool like Max series, like HBO Max series or something like that. I don't want to give too much information about it, but it's very kind of action-y, heist energy, where they're like trying to overthrow like their version of Voldemort, basically. So pretty cool, but it is a little bit of a slow burn. So I would say like the first like 70% of it kind of feels like it's all leading up to something, and that last final act, shit kind of hits the fan. It's really great. But yeah, loved Mistborn. I think it's pretty good. I'll definitely be excited to read the rest of it. But he does write giant books, so like it's like 500 to 1,000 page books. So be ready for like a long adventure. So, Mistborn. Was Mistborn overhyped, underhyped, or properly hyped? I think appropriately hyped. I think it's pretty hyped. I think Brandon Sanderson in general is pretty hyped, and I think this is right. I think it's right on. It's pretty good. I like it a lot. I will finish the series. It makes me potentially interested to read his other book. All right, the second book I read this year, Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Piranesi is kind of about a guy named Piranesi who lives in this like Elseworld type place. It kind of has like Studio Ghibli energy, where he lives in like this labyrinth where there's room upon room upon room, but there's also like stuff growing and Greek statues everywhere and waters that come up. It was very fantastical and magical. And without like spoiling too much about it, because it's I went into it blind, and I actually advise going into it blind. But basically, he lives in this labyrinth world. There might be other people there, and we don't really know what's going on, and neither does Piranesi. And so you're kind of unfolding the mystery as you're going along with it. This has been on a lot of people's like S-tier books for a long time, and I totally get why. I like it a lot, and it's a pretty quick read. Like, it doesn't drag on. You can knock it out in a weekend if you really wanted to. So Piranesi was really great, very fantastical, a little bit of a mystery. And yeah, I think you'll be maybe surprised by how it goes. Was Piranesi overhyped, underhyped, or appropriately hyped? Slightly overhyped, actually. I know that's a crazy thing to say because there are people who I know this is like their favorite book of all time. I don't know. I think it was built up as something that was going to like completely shatter my world, and I don't think it did. I think it was an amazing, fun book. I like it a lot. I just think if you're going to tell me it's the greatest book of all time, what is it doing that's different? decent, and it does some different stuff. I like it a lot. It's written very well, but I don't know that it like shattered my world. Like when I think of a book that is like super hyped to this level, I'm thinking of something that changes the way I think about things, and I don't know if this did that. The next book I read, Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. I'd never heard of this author before, actually never even heard of this book before. I was walking through the Target and I saw it and I'm like, that looks kind of cool. It's kind of a spook book. It's about, it's a little bit of like a haunted house story. So it's about this girl, she's a former drug addict. She gets a job as a nanny. She lives in like the sister-in-law, mother-in-law house, whatever it's called, mother-in-law. Never a sister-in-law, but the mother-in-law house in the back. And like weird stuff starts happening. She's like nannying for this kid. She's like a live-in nanny. The little kid is drawing weird pictures. That's why it's called Hidden Pictures. And there's like a mystery that unfolds there. You're trying to figure out what's going on. Is it in somebody's head? Is it real? Right? I really loved it. It was probably the most, maybe the most fun book I've read this year. Like I think I read it in like 2 or 3 days, which is typically pretty fast for me because I'm only reading for a little bit every night. And this one I tore through and was very, very excited. Honestly, loved the whole thing. I think the ending is not predictable, but like it's guessable, but not predictable, if that makes sense. Like you could figure out the mystery as you're watching it, and it has like actual art in the book as well, which is super cool. So I loved Hidden Pictures. Kind of surprised it's not like mentioned more often. Maybe I'm just not on the right side of like YouTube or TikTok, so I don't get the recommendation. But Hidden Pictures is certainly my favorite thing I've read this year. Even though it's not like the best book, it's not a bad book. It's a good book. I'm just saying it's not like, you know, it's not going to go into some sort of classics or anything like that, but I liked reading it. It was very fun. It gave me the ghost story energy that I was looking for. So was Hidden Pictures overhyped, underhyped, or appropriately hyped? I would say this is actually a little bit underhyped. I don't feel like I hear about it that much. Maybe I'm just missing it, but like I feel like it's a pretty good book. I like this author a lot. I'll read other stuff he writes because of this book, and I really feel like people should maybe talk about it a little bit more. There's a nice little mystery. The pacing's good. It's funny. The characters are likable and relatable. So I think this is an underhyped book for sure. Okay, next book I read is called A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen Peck. A Short Stay in Hell is technically, it's called a novella because look how small it is. You can read it in like 10 minutes. Not 10 minutes, but like you probably knock it out in an hour, maybe 2. A Short Stay in Hell is about this Mormon guy. He dies, right? And he goes to hell. This isn't a spoiler. You find this out like within the first page, okay, of the book. He dies. He goes to hell, and he finds out that all the religions were wrong. There was one right religion. Most people didn't guess it right, and so he's going to hell. And so his hell, and there's different hells, it's not like fire and brimstone or anything like that. It is a giant library, an infinite library, it would seem. I don't know if it's actually infinite or if it has an end. And in this infinite library, every book is just like random like generated letters and numbers and stuff. It's kind of like that example of like if you have a infinity monkeys typing on a keyboard, eventually a book will come out. Well, that's kind of what it is, and they're looking for the book of your entire life. Like, and it has to have no typos and no errors and no nothing. It's kind of like an existential horror. Like, it's kind of scary to think about, like, he can't go to heaven or get out of hell until he finds that book. And there's infinity of these books, and there's other people there, right? So it kind of has energy of like that TV show, The Good Place, where The Good Place is more funny, and there are some funny moments in this. This is also very scary almost, like in a more existential way. Less like ghost story, like, and less like stuff jumping at you or monsters, more the existential horror of being in that situation. Imagine being in infinity, right? Where you couldn't die and you have something to do. There is a way out, right? You can't even just accept that you're going to be there for forever, because there is a way out, but it's going to take so long. And so you go through that experience with this guy, knowing what his thought process is like and what other people are going through in that hell. Very spooky, kind of stuck with me. I think it's really great. I think it's a really cool religious commentary and good commentary on like the finitude of life and appreciating life. So I found it super impactful, and I think it could be impactful for somebody who's having some sort of like, maybe if you're having like a religious deconstruction or something in your life, it could be helpful, or it could make it worse. So I don't know, talk to your therapist about it first. Short Stay in Hell Is it overhyped, underhyped, or appropriately hyped? I think it's underhyped. I think it needs to be hyped up a lot more. This book it's very short, so it can make you feel like it counts, right? It counts as a book. It makes you really think and could really change your perspective on things. It actually kind of scared me a little in many ways. Like, so I think this is an underhyped book. I think it should be on your TBR for sure, especially if you're like in a rut, because it's so quick. You can knock it out in a few hours. And the next book I read this year so far is Scythe by Neal Shusterman. Scythe is a dystopian YA book, technically. I would say it does read like a YA in that it's like easy to read. Not to say it's like simple, it's just like easy to, like I tore through it. Scythe is a dystopian kind of like alt future. The world has solved most of the problems in life. Like people don't die, people can live forever, everybody has food, everybody has UBI, and what happens is because of that, the population growth is growing so rapidly that they have to do what they call gleaning, which is effectively unaliving or killing somebody at supposedly random, right? Because if not, then eventually there's not going to be enough like stuff on Earth to take care of all the people. And so the people who are responsible for gleaning other humans are called Scythe. And it's a little bit, this book is commentary on like separation of like religion and government, because the government is run by an all-knowing AI called the Thunderhead, which is like an extrapolation on the cloud, right? So it's like an even bigger cloud that kind of takes care of everybody. And even if you did die, right, they don't call it dying, they call it being rendered deadish, because you can be brought back to life unless something crazy happens, like you were like burned into ash, or like unless there's nothing to revive, you can basically live forever. And so it's about two young like 17 or 18 year olds who basically are going through an apprenticeship to become Scythe. Only one of them can become the Scythe, and so and they go down kind of two different paths on how they're gonna do it, and like they're like friends, but maybe they're not, and there's a lot of other things that happen between them, but I think it kind of spoils it if I tell you. So if the idea of like a dystopian alt future where there's like a training sequence and like people training to join this exclusive club of Scythes, like they're all basically warriors, even though they don't need to be, right? Because supposedly the world seems like it's settled. Some sides that are like kind of assholes, they like to kill people for fun. There's other sides who like to do it begrudgingly. So you're kind of seeing how this plays out. It's super cool. I think it would make a really great movie. It's part of a trilogy, and I think there's even a spin-off. So I read Scythe, which is the first one, which I love, and then I just read the second one, which is the second in the trilogy, called Thunderhead. So Thunderhead is the name of the giant AI that's in charge, right? And Thunderhead kind of continues the story of what happens at the end of Scythe. Book one extrapolates like the global consequences of everything that happens in book one, and it kind of starts making it a bigger thing, where Scythe 1 is all about like those two apprentices who are trying to become Scythes. Scythe 2 is like, okay, well, what happens after that, and what's really going on here? Talks a little bit more about the giant AI that is like controlling the world, and how like it separates itself from the Scythe. The Scythedom is what they call it. So it's kind of like a direct comparison of like separation of church and state. They literally say separation of Scythe and state, I'm pretty sure. And so you're kind of dealing with like knowing a little bit more about the Thunderhead and like its processing and how it decision makes, because it can't make mistakes supposedly, but then it's noticing bad things are happening, but it's not intervening. It's really interesting. It's very cool. I'll also say though, I liked it a little less than the first one, probably because it feels like a little bit of a build up to the third. I honestly felt like I read half of another book by the time I finished the Thunderhead. Like some stuff happened or whatever, but it kind of ends on a major cliffhanger, which is fine. Like a little bit of a cliffhanger is okay. There's a little bit of some things that get resolved, but in here it kind of literally feels like there should be another chapter, and it just kind of is ending. Now I know there's a third book, so it's not that much of a bummer. It did feel like a lot of setup, and like all the payoff's gonna happen in the third book. So I liked it. I liked the first one way more. I will read the third one. We'll see. Is Scythe overhyped, underhyped, or appropriately hyped? A little bit underhyped. I feel like maybe it's underhyped because it's YA, and I get it, but like the subject matter's pretty adult themed. I mean, it's all about death and killing. Sure, it follows a little bit of the tropiness of some YA books, but it's still a very cool story. It kind of gives Black Mirror energy, so if you like that TV show, Black Mirror, this feels like a story that falls in like right in there. So and the world's pretty fleshed out, which I appreciate, and there's a lot of consistency. with things. Like things that you would, that often would get overlooked by, I think, sometimes YA books are not in Scythe. So I think it's a little bit underhyped. That all said, I do think Thunderhead is maybe overhyped. I don't know if anybody's hyping themselves up for this anyway. I think they're maybe hyping themselves up for the entire series. This was not, like, I didn't not enjoy it. It was fine. It felt like a lot of buildup, and there was like a climax at the end of the story, but I was like left wanting a little bit more. It felt very cliffhangery. It felt like maybe it was supposed to be a duology and they broke up the second book because it's so fat. So it's good. I like it. I think it's great. I do think it's overhyped, and I wouldn't dive into it unless you're ready to dive into the third one also, is my initial feeling. And maybe I'll feel different when I read the third one. Those are the books I'm reading. Those are my takes, and they are the correct takes. Are you reading right now? You should. It's really cute to do, especially if you post pictures about it, especially if you make YouTube videos about it. I hope you found this video super enlightening and helpful. And let me know if you've read any of them. Did you like them? Did you hate them? Did you think any of them were overhyped, underhyped, or properly hyped? Yeah, if you want more booktube style videos, let me know and I will make more. Or if you hate it, keep that shit to yourself. I don't want to hear about it. Thanks so much. Subscribe, like, and I'll see you next week.